Hello, you lovers of love. Welcome to the Find Your Voice, Own Your Worth webinar with me, Sahar Paz, as well as Christine Gutierrez. We are super
Hi.
duper excited that you've joined us. Christine, do you want to say hi?
Hi, everyone. So excited to be here.
We are so excited to have you here. We are proud that you RSVP'd. That lets us know that you're a woman or a man that is invested in your love, that you want to have a better quality of relationships with your family, with your friends, maybe your lover. And we want that for you. So Sahar Paz is my name, and my first name means from day to night. And that has been the journey with love, with intimacy, and with true connection. And for me, that has all started with my inner voice. And that is what I'm obsessed with, for you to understand and find not just the voice that everyone hears, but the voice within you. Your inner voice is the one that holds all the patterns for you of how you cope, how you show up, how you give and you receive love. So if you tune into my website or any of my social media channels, you'll see that I'm all about you finding your voice. And today, a lot of the takeaways will be about how do these things show up? How does your love story and your expectations and your willingness towards love show up within you before you even act on them? I'm going to tell you a little bit about how I met Christine, which happens to be a love story all in itself. It was, we were trying to calculate it today. It was almost 6 years ago that Christine and I met in the beautiful island of Puerto Rico. And we met there because I went there after nearly a decade in New York City, where I was madly in love with a filmmaker and thought, this is it. This is my guy. Everything feels right. Despite the fact that 3 years into the relationship, this loving gentleman who had patterns with love based out of fear, just like I did, told me 3 years in, hey, probably not going to live with you. I really don't think I'll marry you. And guess what? Your girl right here stayed 2 additional years. It took 2 years of conversation within myself to break up. Why? Fear. Biggest fear at that time, I was in my late 20s. Actually, forget that. I was in my early 30s. Ooh, time is a thief. I was in my early 30s and I thought, oh, I'm too old to be single. Am I not going to find someone else? All of my fears, all of my patterns, all of my unfinished business from childhood and old relationships were making decisions for me. And at that time, I had an offer to move to Puerto Rico. And I went there for a year of healing, for a year of understanding, for a year to understand my voice. And that's actually where I wrote my book, Find Your Voice. And it was there one day where I was staying at the Dreamcatcher guest house, where Christine actually has her annual Diosa retreat, if you're looking for an excuse to go to Puerto Rico. And I saw this girl walking through the doorway, and I just ran to her, open arms, thinking she was someone that I knew. I was like, hey, and I just ran straight up to her. And I didn't know her at all. And that's where my love story with Christine Gutierrez started. Christine, I'm going to pass it on to you, girlfriend. Let us know about you and what you're up to.
Thank you so much for that beautiful introduction, Sahar. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. We have over 100 people that are with us here today. And that just makes our heart burst, because that's each heart, that's over 100 hearts that are here with us, that are willing to break open and listen and be guided. And we both are thrilled to have you here. And you know what Sahar said is exactly right. And actually, before we went live, we were talking about how, you know, we both went to Puerto Rico in search of love. And I think it was loving ourselves and also mourning the loss of a breakup and also finding new love. And it was there that that both of us, they call Puerto Rico the island of enchantment, La Isla del Encanto. And we both have a really special connection with the island. And we broke our hearts, we healed our hearts, we've come back to opening and closing our hearts. And it was there that I ran, and we both thought we knew each other. We came running up to each other and we just hugged as if we knew each other, and we both smiled. Even though once we realized that it wasn't someone we knew, we just smiled because it just felt right. You know, it was like a soul sister connection. And now here we are almost 6 years later, together for the first time ever, publicly sharing our medicine. We've come together many times talking about life, spirituality, business, our hearts, but we haven't done so together. And so we are beyond excited. And just as Sahar said, I work as a therapist. I work as an emotional empowerment coach. And what my expertise really is on healing love addiction and on really coming back home to loving yourself. So that is what we're going to dive into today.
Yes, so come on home, girlfriend, it's time. So I hope that you're in a comfortable place. I hope that you have pen and some paper to take some notes. And we're going to go through the 3 sections today that we've been telling you about over social media and in our newsletters. So the first section is story. What is the story you tell yourself when it comes to love? The second is expectations. What do you expect from love? How do you expect it to change you? And lastly, your willingness. What are you willing to compromise or not in the name of love? So we're going to go through each of those sections. We're going to add a personal story and definitely some reflective exercises that you can listen to yourself, that you can really decide and figure out what your pattern is with love on a deeper level. So I hope you have something to write with and perhaps a drink. I know I have my wine here, so cheers to all of you out there. So let's begin, with the first part, which is your story with love, your love story. Now, this doesn't just mean romantic. This could be with your family or with your friends. And what I mean by that is, what is the pattern when you approach someone in love? A little bit about myself. I had a pretty traumatic upbringing. My childhood was not stable at all. So my unfinished business when it comes to love with family or close friends is I'm pretty timid. I'm afraid to really be seen. I may give myself in snippets. And that really keeps me from connection, deep connection. And this has been something I've been aware of for a very long time. This has been something that I have been working on for over a decade. And I could tell you that in the last 2 or 3 years, my connection with my family and friends and also with my lovers has really deepened in a more truthful place and a more compassionate place. And this really stemmed from me understanding my unfinished business. And what I mean by that, for example, with my father, he was abusive and then abandoned me. So I was constantly in my relationship, be it family, friends, or with a lover, I was looking to finish that. I was looking for that person that's not going to abandon me. I was looking for that person that was going to fill that void. And my expectations were that it would be enough. And we'll get into that next. So I want you to ask yourself, what do you tell yourself when it comes to love? To your relationships, when you're approaching a family member or maybe even a friend, are you expecting them to welcome you with open arms? Do you expect judgment? Are you timid? What is your unfinished business? What is it that you tell yourself going in? I'm sure that you've heard this before, that you attract what you are. So if you're wondering why you're having the same relationship with different people, you got to come home to yourself. And it's time to be radically honest. And radically honest does not mean harsh. It just means honest, recognizing that you are the common denominator. You are the one that keeps yourself or attracts yourself to the love that perhaps you don't deserve. So here are a few reflective questions that you could write down when it comes to your love story, your pattern with love. Is there a certain conflict or a certain theme that seems to replay despite the person that you are having this love relationship with? Now you could break it down with a friend, it could be a family member, or it could be a lover. Is there a consistent message within your conflicts or the places where you feel that grit? For example, for me, trust is a huge thing. When you've been abandoned or if you've had any abuse anytime in your life, especially in childhood, you have a trust problem, which means you only let people see a piece of you. You don't let them all the way in the name of protection. Or maybe you're waiting to finish that business of trust and really find that person that's so solid that's going to fill you up. So I want you to reflect. What is the same theme to your conflicts within your relationships? Okay. Second question I have for you is, do you find that you have an intense emotional reaction that's not in proportion to the argument? Or even yourself, you're caught off guard with, whoa, where did that come from? And that could be anger, that could be sadness, that could be jealousy, or even joy. Do you have an intense emotional reaction that is out of proportion to what is going on? This is also known as your trigger. Now, don't feel that you need to answer these right away. The whole reason why we're giving you these questions 2 weeks before our course starts, whether you join or not, is because these are reflective. This is a chance for you to listen and get to know yourself. Listen to your inner voice. When you are in a place of a challenging time and you want to call up your friend or a parent or your lover, what do you tell yourself first? Oh, they're going to judge me. They're going to think I'm stupid. He's probably out there doing something else. I want you to understand, what is that inner narrative telling you? What is the story about love that you are telling yourself? And that's my piece. I know Christine has a unique voice of her own. So Christine, you tell us a little bit about the patterns with story and love.
First of all, I love everything you said so far. And, immediately, one of the things that came to me was the reason why we collaborated is because really we share a similar message around love, and the way we go about getting to the root. We really care about getting to the root. And this is really a teaser of the deeper work that we're going to get to together. So I love that you said, don't feel pressured. You don't have to do it all right now, but really this starts getting the juices going, and it starts getting the untangling process happening in our psyches and our souls, so that we can really access the healing that's on the other side of that wound. So, one thing you said about, that old kind of pattern around love, right? What is the theme that keeps being replayed? And in therapy, we call that repetition compulsion. And repetition compulsion is what you do in an attempt to replay your childhood, whatever that situation was at home, so that you can somehow get it right this time. So I'll give you an example in my own life. So I had this huge aha moment, I think it was over 1.5 years ago. And I was in what I call a relapse relationship. It was a moment where I went backwards on everything I had learned. And you can imagine the shame and guilt that you feel when you feel like you're going backwards in something that you thought you learned. I know that there's a lot of women here that are probably like, yeah, I know, I've been there, right? You think you got over something and you didn't. And it could be very traumatizing to your psyche. But in any case, I was in one of those phases, and I remember thinking, wow, he reminds me of home. And so many songs you listen to, my baby makes me feel like I'm home. And you're like, yeah, that's amazing. Well, not if your home was fucking destructive and awful and traumatic and abusive. That's not that romantic, right? So I had this moment where I said to myself, actually, I don't want to be in a relationship that feels like home. Home for me was very upsetting to my nervous system. Home to me was very confusing. Home to me was very erratic. I had love and I had pain. And so, when you're thinking about that question, what I want you to think about, my point for point one is think about what home felt like in your nervous system. What did home feel like in your nervous system? Did it feel safe? Did it feel scary? Did it feel like both? Was it unpredictable or was it predictable? Because then we start to make the dots connect, and we start to understand, am I going for this person, this guy, this woman, because it just feels like home when in fact it wasn't that comfortable? You see, sometimes what can be very uncomfortable in actuality, for us in the long run, we go for it because it's comfortable in the moment, because it reminds us of something. And that isn't necessarily what we need, but it's usually what we feel safe in because it's familiar, right? And what we're learning as adults, and as we're empowering ourselves with what we're teaching you, is that despite what you went through as a child, or even as a teenager, or even in your 20s and 30s, that we have the opportunity to peel back some layers and say, I want to redefine what I experienced growing up. I want to create something that really works for me, for who I am today. So what did home feel like for you? Was it safe? Was it not? And that's the question that you can start to journal on now, and even later when you can listen to this replay.
Awesome. I love that. Don't be discouraged if you feel like you're coming from a place of a lot of wounds. So your story with love and your patterns do have to do with your wounds and how you put yourself back together. And knowing is half the battle. So getting to know it, reflecting on it, and conversing about it are so, so powerful. You know, we live life above the shoulders and we get stuck in here a lot. And this is a space to reflect and to release by acknowledging it. So you have the next 2 weeks, and when we start again on February 15th for our group coaching, it's going to be all around the story you have with love, your patterns, and everyone's going to get a chance to reflect to the group what they've recognized, and then we're going to give you some feedback. We're going to give you some tips and some tools on how to shape that pattern in a way that works for you, because a lot of it is subconscious, as Christine said, but it's just about building an awareness that's honest and that's compassionate. So your expectations, which is the second topic, keep them in check. Don't expect that this is going to turn around overnight. First of all, you deserve more than that. You deserve more patience. You deserve more time invested. And you deserve this love from yourself. You are the first and the best example. Because if you're not willing to put up with the BS, you won't put up with anybody else's, okay? So let's move into the second part, expectations. What do you expect from? I want to ask you is, how do you expect love to show up day to day? I had this partner once, and he was a gift giver. And it felt great. It felt wonderful to be thought of in that way, to constantly have something new to open or to wear. But for me, I somehow still felt empty. I somehow still felt like I wanted more. And this is where I really want you to understand your love language. It was a book that was re-gifted to me this Christmas by my brother. If you
Such a good one.
Oh, so good. This love language quiz, I believe you can even find online. The love language is all about the kinds of love you receive that work for your personality. It can be gifts. Maybe you're a person that needs affirmation. Maybe you need quality time. Maybe you need someone with acts of service that does something for you. Okay, so there are 5 different love languages. I just named 4 of them, and physical touch is the last one that I forgot. So physical touch, affirmations, service, doing something to help you out, gifts, and what was the last one? Physical touch. I think I went through all of them. So what are your expectations of love, and how do you want them to show up day to day? You know, for me, I grew up in a single parent household, so a lot of what I had as an example were fairy tales and rom-coms, and that's not reality. Relationships are a lot of work. And another expectation that I had that was false was thinking, hey, once I fall in love, this misery of loneliness is going to take everything away and I'm going to be this awesome, happy person. Wrong. Quit lying to yourself, girlfriend. First of all, you're giving that responsibility of self-love and self-care and self-worth, you're giving that to someone else. You are placing it in someone else's hands. That could be a family member. That could be a friend. That could be a lover. But you're taking that responsibility and you're giving it to someone else. And what happens is it becomes this big void. And often I've had lovers say to me, gosh, Sahar, it's never enough for you. And you're right, it wasn't enough. Because I was going back to that story, that unfinished business, and I was hoping your love would fix that. But it won't. So what are your expectations? Here are some reflective questions for you. Do you find that you're seeking approval? Validation is okay. We're human. We want that. But do you find that your relationships are all about seeking approval and acceptance of who you are? Do you find that you're dating potential? Lord, this is mine. I mean, savior complex. I want to fix him. I want to help him. I am, and for me, it was like, if I do this, he's going to love me and he's not going to abandon me. That's my unfinished business, right? The story. If I love him hard enough and if I just see this potential in him that he doesn't even see in himself, girlfriend, I was dating his potential. Are you dating someone's potential? They're a good person. They could be a good person, but are they putting in work to do the change?
That's right.
And this goes back to the first one a bit. Are you looking for constant affection or affirmation? Now, again, you're human, and if your love language is affirmation or touch, great. but is it constant? Is it that void? And I want to know this because this is how we empty our relationships of fuel. And it's so important to know what your expectations are coming in. So take those questions, reflect on them, journal on them, see how they come up in all your varied relationships. Christine, I'm going to pass it on to you, girl. What do you want to say about expectations?
Yeah, so expectations, right? We're going to have them. We're human. They're also, sometimes we have too few expectations. And, what ends up happening a lot of times as women, I'll speak as women, but this happens with men as well. This is not, only gender focused. This is a human thing where we can sometimes forget about having these expectations for ourselves, and we set low expectations, going back to kind of that framework or that blueprint of love that we learned in our childhood. We might have had a really shitty framework for what healthy love looks like, or none. And, it's kind of hard to build a house if you don't have a layout, a framework. You need that. And so, I want to speak about, the expectation that can be too low in a relationship. And for me, that goes to values. Knowing what you want in a relationship will help you know who you need to say no to and who you need to say yes to, right? So having healthy there's different kind of expectations that Sahar is speaking about expectations of what you want in that relationship. And then there's also the healthy expectations that you need to have in order to be able to decipher who you need to allow into your life or not, right? Like, it's okay. A lot of recovering codependents, and we'll talk more about this in the course, can have a really hard time. I know that hi, my name's Christine. I'm a recovering codependent, love addict, blah, 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 right? And sometimes when you have that, it's really hard for you to define your needs, define your expectations, and say, here's what I want, here's what I don't want. A big part of my healing and the work that I do with my clients is establishing what healthy expectations are. It's okay for me to expect my boyfriend to call me every day. It's okay to expect loving, kindness, respect, empathy. It's okay for me to expect someone to not call me a name. It's okay, name calling. It's okay for me to expect someone to be on time, or if they're not on time, for them to let me know what's going on and not lie. There's certain things that are okay to expect. And where have you forgotten about those healthy expectations? Where have you let go of those expectations, maybe because you don't want to seem too crazy because you have been, or you don't want to seem too pushy because you have been? And so, a lot of recovery and healing is about finding that gray area, saying, I'm not who I used to be anymore. If you've acted out in a lot of ways that you weren't proud of, it can sometimes be hard to speak up your voice, right? This is what Sahar talks about, finding your voice, and what I speak about in owning your worth. And it's this beautiful kind of in-between of coming together and saying, where have I forgotten that I'm still allowed to have healthy expectations? It's not coming from my void anymore, but I now need to start asking for what I need. If not, then I'm not going to know when to say no, and when to say, this guy might not be where I need him to be. He's really sweet, but he's not reaching out to me as much as I really need. And that's okay. So there's so much that we're going to dive into in the course. This is, we're really giving you a lot. So don't feel like you need to get it all. Take what you need to take. So many things are going to start to unravel. We're really just planting seeds here, but this is a wonderful way to start tapping into what your expectations and healthy expectations are as well.
Yes, and the same, excuse the train going by, I'm in Oceanside, California, so there's a train here. Expectations, that's what we're going to do the second week, which is February 21st. And I will say that as someone who has the unfinished business of not wanting to be abandoned and wanting that love, I would set my expectations pretty low and form into the person my friend needed to be that person that my mom needed to be that person that this man wanted me to be. And I was never me. So the love that I was receiving was not for me. It was not the kind of love I needed, because I was just transforming into what I thought they expected from me.
Yeah.
So it's very clear. It's good to be clear on what you expect and what you desire, and not coming from this place of either desperation or scarcity, thinking I'm not lovable. No one's going to love me. Well, why should I expect that I can set these boundaries and he or she is not going to leave? So the second week is going to be a lot, and codependence is a big one. And that's when you don't know where they end and where you begin. And you take their problems on as your own. And it's a very draining cycle. Both Christine and I are recovering codependence, and we're going to dive into that the second week. Yes. It's a beautiful awareness to come into. And that leads into the third part, which is your willingness to compromise. So there's this beautiful center of compromise, which is, of course, the goal for everyone to go in. It's a win-win situation. Nobody feels like they're compromising too much. Friend, family, lover. But then there's this other end where you don't compromise anything. Nah, that's not me. I'm standing right here, and this is it. I'm stubborn, bottom line. And for some people, that works. But most people, it doesn't. One, it keeps you from that intimate connection with these people because they don't feel like they're being heard. They feel like it's all about you. And a lot of times when you're doing that, at either end of compromise, it's because you're trying to protect yourself. Okay? The other end is the end that I used to fall on, which was I would compromise everything about myself. From what I wanted to eat, to my comfortable living situation, to what I wanted to say, to my love language within the relationships, to setting boundaries. That's a big one. Simple conversations, but we compromise either at the very end, which we're just changing everything about ourselves, or at the other end when we're not willing to. And both of these come from a place of fear. So I ask you for your reflective questions. What are you trying to protect yourself from? What are you afraid of? And what are your hard lines? It's good to know what you're not willing to compromise on that really affects you as a human being and your worth. What are they? What is your bottom line? And you have those morals, and you have every right to stand up for them and not be afraid that someone will not love you, that someone will not stick around. And that's often where these come from. I just want to be loved. I'm already too hard to love. That's what I thought. I must be difficult to love, so I'm going to compromise and become this person that they want me to be. And I often did, and guess what? I still got abandoned. That same story kept repeating with different faces. All right, so that was your first question. What are you protecting yourself from when you're compromising at either one of these ends? And can you think of a situation, maybe even a business situation, because compromise is negotiating, or personal, that the compromise worked well for you and the other party, where it was a beautiful conversation and a collaboration versus a confrontation? Can you think of a time that that worked for you? How did you approach it? What were your hard lines that you said, hey, I'll go this far, but I can't go that far. It just doesn't feel right for me. Can you remember those times? Have you had any of those experiences? And which end of compromise do you fall on? Are you tend to be one end and not the other end? Or does it depend if it's a family, friend versus lover? These are good things to know about yourself. Because if you do have a healthy relationship in one of those ends, that's a model for you. Because intimacy is not just about sex. Intimacy is letting someone see you when you're vulnerable. And compromise is a vulnerable situation. So just think of yourself in compromise in any of those types of relationships. What has worked, what hasn't worked. And we're going to cover the willingness to compromise on February 28th, which is the last day of our group course. And I'm going to pass this on to Christine, because I know you have a lot of good stuff to say about compromise.
Wonderful. Yeah, so as you can see, I'm getting messages. You're speaking to me, so people are loving the webinar. So, you know, relationships start with your relationship to self. And every relationship, whether it's a friend, especially intimate friendships, soul sisters, business partners, romantic partners, whether you're married or dating, they all stem from the relationship to self. And when you're willing to peel back the layers as we're going through each week, as we're describing that we're doing in the course, you're actually able to see the truth of who you are. And as you get to know yourself, you become willing with people to see who they are. And what happens in this process is that you get willing with yourself, and then you're willing with others. You see, if we're stubborn with ourselves and we're unwilling to look at ourselves, we're unwilling to look at our psyche, we're unwilling to look at our shadows, the darkness, the parts of us that are, stubborn, are needy, we got to look at all the parts of us that are amazing. Because the more we're able to look at ourselves and the fullness of who we are, the more we're able to see others for who they are, the more we are able to see them as perfectly imperfect, right? You see, a lot of the things that happen is that if you've been wounded as a child, or you've gone through trauma, as Sahar and I shared, we have, you might have developed, a very strong protective mechanism, and your defense mechanisms are really strong. And usually when that happens, you have this either very hot or very cold. There's usually little in between. So you're either speaking up too much, or you're not speaking up. It's either on high or it's on mute. Have this in between where you say, actually, I'm able to be calm and still speak my truth, right? I'm given permission to do that. And this is where the willingness comes in. But it starts with ourselves. How do we speak to ourselves? Are we willing to take a peek and say, right now, I'm really upset that that my boyfriend didn't show up emotionally the way I wanted him to today. He didn't show up. I wanted him to be more present. I wanted him to stand up stand up for our relationship a little bit more, and he didn't. So maybe your little girl gets triggered and immediately you want to react. But there's another part of you that says, I don't want to react in that same way. It doesn't make me feel good. I want to be willing to speak my truth and say what I actually feel, but also do so in a way that's going to be productive for me and for this person. And, for me, that has been the balance. The willingness has started with myself to say, can I sit with both feelings at the same time, right? I'm allowed to have both feelings. And sometimes it takes time to recalibrate and get there. And we're going to give you tools in our 3-week coaching course that's going to actually help you in those moments of obstacles so that you know what to do. I've had such an amazing transformation of all my relationships in my life. And it's because of this willingness to say, I'm not perfect. I'm not perfect. I'm willing to grow. And yet I still have the right to speak up. That's the willingness piece. That's the beautiful merging of intimacy and the willingness to hold that space with your partner when you're in the moment of a conflict, which is where the most intimacy comes, where you can revisit each other and say, I'm not perfect. I hear you, right? Where you can allow in and be receptive as well to when other people are feeling that you didn't show up for them. And when people are feeling triggered by you, not only when you're being triggered by others, and that you can pause and say, wait, I'm not perfect, so I'm willing to hear, and I'm still perfect. It's this beautiful union of holding both. When you get to that space, you get out of that framework of feeling like, oh my God, I need to do everything that they want me to do. I need to people please. I need to give up my voice. And you get out of the place of feeling like, I'm so perfect, I need to attack and be right. So holding yourself as imperfect and perfect allows the willingness to come in.
Newsflash, you're human.
That's right.
Newsflash, you deserve love. You're not hard to love. That's what all this is about. We want you to have healthy connections with love in every aspect, because that's how you grow. That's how you thrive. That's how you feel supported. And that's how you can pass it on, how you can be a better friend, a better wife, a better husband, a better daughter and mother. It all starts from a place of love and how we communicate it. So in these next 2 weeks, when you sit with these questions, I want you to really understand and be reflective. Don't get down on yourself if you recognize that you've been in a pattern that has not been serving you. That's okay. That's what this place is for, that you're understanding that you're getting to know that. Knowing is half the battle. From here, we tweak. And you have my support. You have Christine's support. And the awesome part is the people that are joining this group coaching, and we've sold a couple of spots already, is that they're on the same journey with you, and this is a safe place. And often I will say that with strangers, it's a lot more comfortable than people you know, because you can show up and you don't feel like there's this prejudgment or history. And this reflection from us as well as other people in this group are huge. I've seen this happen time and time again in group situations. And bottom line, you deserve to be loved. You deserve to be heard. You deserve the love that you want. And that's what this is all about. So we've been asking everybody to submit questions that we can answer live, and we do have a couple here. So I have one, which is from Lisa from Orange County here in California. And she wants to know, what do I do if I'm already in a relationship? How do we begin to change that? It's tough, but it's not impossible, Lisa. Conversation, consciousness, those two are huge, plus compassion. So if you feel that you're in a pattern with your lover that's not working for you, can you say what it is without the blame game, right? So when you come to compromise, when you come to negotiation in love or at work, you have to own up your place. What is your place in the situation, whether it's your reaction, how you're feeling, what you've allowed to go on for so long that's never served you in the beginning. And you can take ownership of that. I should have mentioned this to you before, because what happens often is we don't want to hurt our lover's feelings, or we don't want to ruffle feathers, and we don't like confrontation and that grit in our relationship. So we shut it up, we push it down. And what happens is resentment comes up. We blow up in these other areas of our life. So when you come at this, I want you to be honest and come to your partner. And if you feel that conversations face-to-face and voice-to-voice tend to escalate, this is a beautiful time to write. I'm a big believer in writing. I'm a big believer in writing, and I will say in writing, you can't always tell a person's emotions, so it's great to preface it with, remember that I love you, and I'm sharing this with you in a calm tone. I always do that in my emails or my handwritten letters for tough subjects, because people will tend to, their inner voice will take the tone they think you're speaking in. We don't want them to give them the room to fill in the blank with what doesn't work, okay? So these conversations that are honest are huge, and realize that a lot of times your partner doesn't want bad for you. They're trying to help you. Maybe they're overwhelmed themselves and they don't know how. Or maybe their solutions or their love language is not what you need. And your love language changes over time. So if you're in that relationship, first start with the problem and the pattern. Take ownership of how you contributed to it. And then say, from my end, this is how I see things, right? Because there tends to be three truths: his, hers, and what actually happened, right? So we want to take that into consideration. Everyone's perspective is their truth, but that doesn't mean anyone is wrong. And that's where the miscommunication tends to come in relationships. Compassion is where you bring this in, okay? So start that conversation with your partner of, this is where I am, this is the situation we're in, this is what I take responsibility for, and this is the part about you and what you're contributing that's making it hard for me. And start that conversation there. And perhaps you and him or you and her can join this course together. We've had some couples do this before, and it's been so helpful. One, because they each get their individual space to be heard, to be acknowledged and respected by strangers. That's a great buffer. And then two, they hear each other from that. You know, it's hard to step out of that bubble when you're in the relationship, and this allows for that. So start the conversation with compassion. Take ownership of your part in it before you start telling them about their habits or their behaviors that are upsetting you. Is there anything you wanted to add to that, Christine?
No, I think you hit it on the nail. You know, I think that as we do this healing work, and as we get honest, and as we get real with everything that's going on from the past to the present, we start to understand ourselves better. We react less. We are able to catch ourselves faster when we do react, to recover faster. And so, you know, this is not about, you know, doing everything right. Like you said, those fairy tale images of a relationship are not the way relationships go down. And so as long as we're willing, as long as you have two people that are willing to have a conversation, to hear each other, and to hold their belly in that place of that trigger and say, you know, let me just sit with it, because I want to hear this person, and I want to compromise so that I can have a holy instant, which is what, you know, the Course in Miracles says is a moment where you transcend being right or wrong, and you really come to a deeper understanding of each other's truth, which is bigger than the smaller problem, which is the intimacy that you want to get to. And regardless of where relationships end, how they move, how they transform, a successful relationship doesn't look like marriage or dating in a certain length of time. A successful relationship is two souls that come together, that are united for the purpose of healing and are willing to heal. So as long as you give it your all, that's the best thing that you can remember to do in a relationship. All of your relationships about giving yourself the opportunity to see yourself transform your darkness into light as much as possible, your anger into compromise. So it's beautiful that you're both willing to do that. And it's great that you're asking these questions.
Awesome. Okay, I'm going to pass the next question to you, Christine. It's from Julia from New Mexico. And she asks, how do you know when you're ready to love again?
Wonderful question. I don't know. You know, I don't know. You know, it's really individual. You know, I think that sometimes you're not ready, and then life surprises you. You know, I think sometimes you think you're so ready, and then life surprises you and says, nope, you're not. So, you know, my honest answer is that what I've discovered, my personal honest answer is that you don't always know. And that the best thing that we can do, and at least what I'm doing, is readying myself by being the best person that I can be, loving myself the best that I can love myself, loving others the best that I can love others. And that includes my past relationships. Really, I've just had miraculous things happen recently because of my desire to really pour love into every place, into myself, into my home, into my friendships, into my business. And just know that by you doing that, that's allowing you to be prepared for when love comes to you. I don't think that there's a timeline. I don't think that there's something that you can do. But what I do know for sure is that as you love yourself more and you love others more and you become your healthier self, then you become more ready for love to arrive at your doorstep.
I love that. Really good.
Do you have anything to add to that, Sahar?
I do. I would say it's just like, you know, you're never really ready to be a parent. Like, oh my gosh, I'm not ready to be a mom or a dad. It's the same thing. One, you figure it out on the way. And I think it's really beautiful when you're in this place of transition to actually attempt to let love in, because it's in this place that you're really trying to figure it out. And when you're fearful, you tend to be a little bit more careful. Now, this is not setting up the walls and not willing to compromise and really protecting yourself. That's not what I'm talking about. But being in this place of transition, I think it's really beautiful because you have to communicate with that person and say, I'm not really ready to go there yet, so we got to pace it slow. This increases your communication. This increases your ability to set boundaries. And most of all, you're not in this desperate and scarce place where you think like, finally it's here, I'm going to do anything to hold on to it, and I forget all my expectations, I forget my, you know, standards and whatever. No. And I think almost if you feel like you're not ready for love, it's probably a good time for you to let a little bit in. Absolutely. That's a really good question, Julia. Thank you so much for sending that our way. And I think we have time for one more. And what can you do to get out of the breakup funk? And that is from Christina from Queens. What up, Queens? I used to live out in New York for 10 years. Anyhow, I'm going to give a little bit of tidbit and then I'll pass it on to you. All right. Let's talk about the funk on a brain neurological level, right? Move your body. I don't care if it's yoga. I don't care if it's dancing. I don't care if it's walking your dog or dancing in your house. To move your body gets you in a better mood. And then set small things that sense the reward center of your brain, because you need that serotonin right now. So small rewards. I mean, sometimes when you're in a deep funk, getting up and showering that day is good. Or trying to maintain an even keel mindset rather than being super negative Nancy is great. So the reward center of your brain needs to be activated so that you feel the funk slowly releasing off of you, right? And listening to your inner voice and how you're beating yourself up. And if you're replaying those things of, damn, it's over, damn, I'm single again, I can't believe he cheated on me, so on and so forth, I'm not lovable, listen to that. Because once that's on repeat and goes and goes and goes, that becomes your pattern. And it's a lot harder to break out of when you get into that pattern. So get out of life above the shoulders. And this is your gift and your curse, right? So that breakup funk, I'm just talking about a scientific level. Get out of your head, moving your body changes your mood. And then get your reward center in your brain activated by something that feels rewarding to you. And this isn't about, okay, I did yoga, I'm going to go eat ice cream. Okay, that's fine. But the reward isn't what you're eating. It's more about activating in your brain something that you feel proud of yourself for on a gut and emotional level. When you feel that way for an extended period of time, it becomes your new norm. Anything you want to change, whether it's a breakup funk, whether you're trying to be more confident or let go of your anxiety, it's just a matter of repetition, because your brain, like your heart, is a muscle. It needs that repetition. So that was kind of the scientific approach to that. Christine, do you have more of a heart approach on how to get up over that breakup funk?
Yeah, moving is essential. It's something that I'm learning to do myself. And when you move, you shake it out. So that was great. On a heart level, give yourself time to say, it's okay, baby girl, you're doing a good job. That's my favorite kind of self-talk mantra. It's okay, baby girl, you're doing a good job. A breakup is a grieving. It's a getting to know yourself in a new identity. So you're essentially getting to know yourself again, because you share routines, you share habits with this person, you share memories. This is a human being that you gave your soul to, your body to, your heart to, usually, right, in some way. And so it takes time. So be gentle with yourself, be understanding, know that you're not alone, know that many hearts have gone through the same thing, just like you, and that, that it is not an unsuccessful relationship. I think that was such a huge pivoting for me when I was able to realize that. And I had a beautiful compliment that was said to me in my recent breakup, where he said, my ex, when we broke up, she just like crumbled to pieces. But just from observing you, it's like you rose back even stronger. And, what a miracle moment. What an amazing compliment. And it was true. And it wasn't, and this is the beautiful point of being vulnerable, but also being honest, was that I had the opportunity to say, and yet I felt abandoned, but I wasn't, because I didn't abandon myself. So what you need to understand is that in a breakup, you can sometimes feel abandoned, but you're usually not. It's usually a re-traumatizing, or even if you are abandoned, the most important person to not abandon is you. So what I would say is keep reminding yourself, I will not abandon you, and I got you. And that is the sexiest thing. P.S. If you're talking about, which we're going to get into in our 3-week course about how boundaries and how all these things really add to sexiness and self-esteem. And there's nothing more attractive than a woman that's in her power with both her vulnerability and sharing, yes, you broke my heart, and yet I'm still strong. And guys smell that, they see it, they smell it, and it can't be fake, it can't be forced. It has to be because you've done the heavy lifting. So be gentle with yourself and know that you're not alone, and don't abandon yourself, and repeat to yourself, baby girl, baby boy, you're doing a good job.
I love that. Don't abandon yourself. That's great. So thank you so much for the 3 ladies that we answered their question. There were more that headed our way, but we're running out of time. So we'll try to answer them over social media. And I'm hoping that all of you will be able to join our 3-week course. Yay. It's going to be $100 until tonight, midnight, Pacific
We got some
time.
sales right now, so keep them coming.
Awesome. So it'll be 3 a.m. for those that are on the East Coast. It's $100. That's $33 a session. I mean, you cannot beat it. You're worth that. In New York, you can't even get a meal for that other than a drink. So come join us. Come understand your story with love, your expectations, and you're willing to compromise. We want your relationships to improve, the quality of your connections to get better. This is how you feel supported. This is how you grow in life. This is the intimacy. This is community. That's what we want for you. So I hope that you will join Christine and I this February to just love on yourself and to understand your relationship with love. And head to my website where we're doing the sales, saharpaz.com. You could either go to my store, or if you scroll down, there's a link right there on the home page. And again, it's going to be $100 until midnight tonight, Pacific Standard Time. And we hope that you'll join. We're going to be closing sales on Valentine's Day, which is very appropriate. And our first session is February 18th, the second February 21st, and the third will be February 28th at 6 p.m. Pacific Time, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. And we're going to have 60 minutes together to talk. We'll have some tidbits and all that good stuff for you, action plans and very solid things, as well as time for you to speak and get reflection. So it's going to be a beautiful blend of both. It is going to be limited to a certain number of people. I think we had 9 spots left this morning. Anything else you want to add, Christine?
Yeah, so we are, the main purpose of this is for you to unpeel the layers, to be able to untangle the webs that have been blocking you, for you to really feel confident so that you can, whether you're single, to be able to date more confidently and do so in a different way than you've done in the past, for you to feel more confident internally so you know how to handle situations, you know how to text, you know how to talk better because it's coming from an authentic place. And if you're in a relationship and you're going through some conflict or you want to deepen your intimacy, this is also the place for you. We've decided to open this for both men and women, right? And so if you're a couple, like Sahar said, you're more than welcome to come together. It's a beautiful space. We'll get to support you. And it's probably the cheapest way to work with Sahar and I right now. And so we're always trying to do different price points that really work for people. So if you've been wanting to work with us, but the one-on-one has been too expensive, or you can't come to my Diosa retreat in Puerto Rico, or you're a man and you've been dying to work with us but haven't felt the right space, this is going to be the space for you. You're going to get the opportunity to work with us. We're going to be in a group setting. We're keeping it small and intimate. So you're going to have your answers. We're going to have answers to your questions, and you're going to really get that TLC that you need and that support in a much more personal way than you would in any of our other programs that we're going to be offering. So this is a great chance to dive deep and to heal. Perfect for Valentine's Day.
It is. And encourage the men out there to come. You know, they got it tough. They're very limited in what they're allowed to feel, and they've got to be the problem solvers. So it's a time for us to bring men and women together to have this conversation. And I think it would be just awesome to have both point of views within the circle, because we can definitely all learn from each other. So thank you so much, Christine, for this collabo. Been waiting 6 years for us to do this.
I know.
And we are pumped, and we want to share this love with you. So go on to saharpaz.com, get yourself a treat for this February. We will hopefully see you in social media, and definitely on February 15th for our first session. Much love to all of you.
What's your social media before we get off?
All of it is at Sahar Paz, SAHARPAZ. And Christine, you want to give them your handles?
Yeah, and mine on social media on Instagram and Twitter is at Cosmic Christine, COSMICCHRISTINE. And on Facebook, it's Christine Gutierrez.
And I'm going to go ahead and put all that information in the description of this video. This YouTube link is going to stay here for you, so you can replay this video as much as your little heart desires. And we hope that we will get to see you live and in person for our video group coaching starting February 15th. Happy Valentine's. Love y'all.
Love you all.
Bye. Bye, Christine.
Bye, baby.